So Stephanie was a young lady in her early 20s who came to us after having been involved in a horrific accident in Hampton, Virginia. She was a backseat passenger in a convertible that was driving down somewhat of a windy road, bit of a back road in Hampton that connected two major thoroughfares. And as she is in the back seat of this convertible vehicle, the driver takes her attention away from the road and looked down at her GPS, trying to see how much longer it was going to be until they reached their destination. When she did so, she didn't see a curve in the roadway that was ahead. And unfortunately, the vehicle left the roadway, went down through a ditch, and then hit a tree head on. Really unfortunate for Stephanie was that she was thrown from the back seat as a result of all of this, several feet away from the vehicle, and was found kind of in the wooded area when EMTs arrived and some bystanders came to assist. Really horrific circumstances of an accident. And, Stephanie should be very thankful that she is here today, given the severity of this wreck and her being ejected from the vehicle. But she certainly sustained some very traumatic injuries that we helped her with along the way, and that unfortunately are going to continue to affect her as she moves forward with her life, given their severity and the treatment that she had to endure in the days, weeks, months following this particular wreck. So really some circumstances that frighten anyone, being thrown from a vehicle as it's bounding off the roadway and colliding into a tree. It was a terrifying experience, I'm sure, for everyone involved. So Stephanie suffered a number of injuries as a result of being thrown from this vehicle. However, the most apparent and dramatic injury was that she suffered a fracture to her femur, which is the thigh bone. It's the largest bone in the human body. And her fracture was at the very top of the thigh bone, in essence, where the femur meets the hip socket. So you have your femur bone that sits in the hip socket, and that's what allows the mobility of your leg. Her fracture was right at the top of the femur bone, which creates a number of issues. She certainly had several bumps, bruises, abrasions from being thrown. She also went through a period of lost consciousness, which can be expected given the fact that she was thrown from the vehicle. And she had some residual headaches and cognitive issues where, things were a little hazy for her and blurry in the days and weeks following the wreck. But thankfully that seemed to resolve, and the persistent issue for Stephanie was her femur fracture. She was taken from scene by ambulance, obviously, to the hospital, and the emergency room physicians and the consulting orthopedic surgeon immediately saw that it was apparent that Stephanie's femur fracture required surgical repair. It's called an open reduction and internal fixation, which means that they actually have to open up the skin and go in and internally fix the bone so that it is placed again in its correct anatomical way. That's done through both the doctor physically manipulating the bone, as well as in Stephanie's case, inserting a nail through the femur bone to actually nail the bone together. As you can expect, this is an intense surgery that requires months and months of recovery and recuperation, which Stephanie did. She was in the hospital for over a week recovering, and then was sent home with home health care, where someone came and attended to her every day and helped her with physical therapy and her daily needs. And she continued on with physical therapy for months. And unfortunately, in Stephanie's case, the femur fracture was so significant, and the manner in which it had to be repaired resulted in her having a 2 millimeter difference in length between her two legs, meaning her injured leg was now 2 millimeters shorter than her uninjured leg. Now you think 2 millimeters, that's not a whole lot, but for us and the way we've become accustomed to walking over our life, if you alter that just slightly, it can create a significant problem. And unfortunately for Stephanie, she had a permanent limp that was very apparent, and that she was going to deal with for the remainder of her life. Now, she can use shoes to assist that have special lifts, but it's not something that will ever go away or can be repaired. She will have this leg length discrepancy for the remainder of her life. And it's really difficult for anyone, but especially someone of her age, again, early 20s, very active. And so very significant injuries, as you can expect, given the circumstances of the wreck. And they will have, unfortunately, lifelong effects on Stephanie. Thankfully, she recovered quite well, and she's very well adjusted and has moved on with her life as best she can. But certainly a trying time in her life. So Stephanie had a number of fears when she first came to Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, and the reason for that was her career was really up in the air at that point. She came to us very early on after her accident, and while she was still in the initial recovery stages for her injuries. But at the time that this happened, Stephanie was in the military, and she was in the United States Navy in military police. And both her parents had been in the military. Her father had done a 20-year career in the military. Her mother had done several years in the military as well. And Stephanie's intentions were to make a career out of the military, serve 20 years, and then transition into civilian employment. However, her recovery did not get her to a point where she was able to do that. When she first came to us, she was very concerned, what am I going to do for money? What if I cannot get back to serving in the military as I once did? And the unfortunate reality was, due to her leg length discrepancy, she was permanently limited in her ability to run, jog, stand a post, lift, jump, many of the things that are required of military police officers. So for those reasons, she was medically discharged from the United States Navy and had to all of a sudden seek new employment. To Stephanie's credit, she did so. She's enrolled in cosmetology school, and she has moved on and has done her best to find a career that suits her and that will support her. And it's all to her credit. But certainly her primary concern when she came to us is, what am I going to do with my military career? Because at that point, it was really up in the air. And, her nightmare did occur in that she was medically discharged. But thankfully, through evaluations and persistent rehabilitation, she's been able to move on to cosmetology school. One of the things that we did to assist kind of easing her concerns when it came to her career was that, as part of Stephanie's case, we hired what's called a vocational expert. And what a vocational expert does in a personal injury case is they evaluate someone's career and work with the restrictions that are placed on an individual by the treating physicians, and evaluate those to make a determination as to what sort of career is appropriate for someone and what is not. And through the work that we did with our vocational expert, it was very clear that Stephanie was not going to be able to continue in the United States Navy, and as a result would suffer a loss in what's called earning capacity, how much she could earn over the years going forward. And through our vocational expert, we were able to work up a figure that demonstrated the difference in what Stephanie could earn in the military as opposed to what she's expected to earn as a beautician following her completion of cosmetology school. And the great thing about that is we're able to present that as a damage in her personal injury case. And it's something that we were able to recover for her from the insurance company, so that any difference in wage that she may experience going forward is something that she's recuperated, and she can move on without those fears any longer. She's not going to be able to get back her Navy career, but thankfully we were able to help her kind of bridge the gap between what those earnings would have been. Stephanie came to us very early on, and at that stage she had not been offered any sort of settlement or anything by way of financial compensation for what she had been through. And frankly, the no offer status, as we would call it, where the insurance company has not made any offer to settle a claim, persisted into litigation. Once we filed a lawsuit, we're now in litigation, and there are several things that we do associated with a lawsuit. And that no offer status continued for several months while the case continued on. There were points in the litigation where Stephanie was blamed for certain portions and certain circumstances of the crash that the insurance company continued to say, no, you, Stephanie, bear some responsibility for what happened to yourself. And that, really sat poorly with myself and certainly with Stephanie. And through, continued work in litigation and some tough discussions and legal research and motions practice and all the things that come along with litigation, we were really able to establish that just was not true. And thankfully, at the end of the day, the insurance company understood that was not a tact that was going to be successful, and the no offer status changed into an offer, and we went through negotiations, and we're thankful to get a resolution to the case that Stephanie found to be appropriate given what she went through. So injury cases they're all unique. But one of the things that they have common is that insurance companies like to use the medical expenses and the medical bills that someone has incurred as really the benchmark to begin for settlement. So insurance companies use these computer programs and they put in figures and pieces of information, and that computer program spits out settlement number to them. And they try to stick right to that. And the medical bills are really the touchstone of what that computer program analyzes and determines for what's appropriate. In this case, Stephanie's medical bills were about $70,000. Sure, that is a ton of money, $70,000, don't get me wrong. But Stephanie had the benefit of, after being discharged from a local civilian hospital, her follow-up care was through United States Navy and military medical providers. And those are exceedingly cheap. Whereas had all her care been through civilian medical providers, we would have been talking about $150,000, $175,000, $200,000 in past medical bills. But for Stephanie, she only incurred $70,000 to treat these very severe injuries. The problem with that, though, is that the insurance company hangs on to that $70,000 as the initial benchmark as to what settlement numbers would be appropriate. 2 times the medical bills, 3 times the medical bills, 4 times the medical bills. This is kind of how the insurance company looks at it. And what we were able to do is get the insurance company out of that mindset, to get the insurance company to appreciate that, no, this is unique in Stephanie's case. These $70,000 in past medical bills are not an appropriate threshold to begin measuring her pain, her suffering, and her inconvenience, given the permanent limitations that she's incurring. So what we did is we hired the vocational expert to assist in evaluating her future lost wages, but we also hired what's called a certified life care planner, who is a medical physician and, again, certified in doing life care planning, who can project future medical costs that Stephanie was going to incur to treat her injuries as she moves forward. So through all of this, through getting the insurance company out of that mindset, for developing a life care plan of hundreds of thousands of dollars in future medical needs, as well as the future wage earning that she lost out on, we were able to get the insurance company away from being tethered to that $70,000 and getting much more than 2, 3, or 4 times than that amount. So there are a few things that you can take away from Stephanie's case and apply to really anyone who's been in a wreck that was not their fault. First, don't take what the insurance company says initially to you as necessarily the truth or fully controlling right? Initially, Stephanie was blamed or told that she bared some responsibility for this wreck. And that just was not true. Insurance companies are looking to resolve claims as quickly as possible for as little as possible. So Stephanie did the right thing and immediately contacted our firm, experienced personal injury firm, to ease her mind and say, well, hold on a second. That doesn't sound right, doesn't sit right, and probably is not accurate. So first and foremost, speak with an experienced personal injury lawyer. The second thing that is a good takeaway from Stephanie's case is that not only do you want to speak with a personal injury lawyer and an experienced personal injury lawyer, but one who has the right tools to contact and engage the necessary experts that can really help prove up future damages. Those things that we all worry about if we're in a wreck, right? What will tomorrow hold? What if my back continues to hurt for 2 more years? What if I need surgery down the line? What if I can't do my job? These are things that require expert assistance. And at Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, we're very experienced in finding these experts, involving them, retaining them, getting them the information that they need, preparing them for testimony. And really, in Stephanie's case, it was vital. Those were the things that were able to get the insurance company out of that mindset of 2 times, 3 times, 4 times the past medical specials, and really force them to evaluate the risk that they had should they not make a fair settlement offer. So thanks everybody for listening to Stephanie's story. My name's Griff O'Hanlon. It was a pleasure helping her out. I'm with Cooper Hurley Injury Lawyers, and if you or a loved one have been in an accident, please give us a call so we can help evaluate your claim for you. Give us a call at 757-333-3333. Thanks so much.
Cooper Hurley